A little after 8 o'clock, Jake Crosby was in hair and makeup, but he finally made it, which is really exciting. So it is Coffee with a Capper for the month of April. We have Brad Kelly from Annie Mac Home Mortgage. He's going to talk about the deliciousness of the finance world in just a minute. And of course, Jake Crosby joining us from Pine Tree Properties. He does I'm going to screw the list up, so I'll let him talk about what he does. But more than one thing, which is going to be interesting to hear about at a very young age, which is pretty cool with the business and the empire that he is building, and all the things that you could leverage probably through him as one of your fellow teammates here at KWCLM. So first and foremost, we do try to pull this off at least once a month, usually toward the middle of the month, which might have been next week, but it's this week because we're traveling next week. So here we are, Coffee with a Capper. Brad Kelly, take it away, Annie Mac Home Mortgage. We joked a few episodes ago, Brad, we joked about the fact that if you're working with your buyers, you're probably waiting with your buyers and you should wait faster because buying power tends to evaporate by the minute these days. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, so we're dealing with the same market kind of like that we were dealing with before. I mean, rates are moving north, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Yeah, it's not great. Like, yeah, everybody's
You're
looking
going to
at
print
it
those shirts?
like
Annie Mac
that.
Home Mortgage. It's not great.
It's Tim's pitching it like, hey, but people are losing buyer power and buying power and stuff like that. Ultimately, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. This is a necessary move. Like
Oh, yeah.
rates can't stay at 2% and 3%. Like that's not a thing, because that ultimately that is driving. There's two sides to rates. There's the what you can borrow it at, and then there's the what your money's making you. Well, it's the same. It's just, if they're lending money at 2% and 3%, then you're making money at no percent. That's and that's not, and nobody wants that either. That's the other side of the coin. So rates need to go up. The Fed rate needs to go up because they're already talking about the potential of recession type environment, in the not too distant future. And if the Fed rate doesn't get up to a point where when that environment starts to come into play, that they can start to lower the rate to cushion the blow, then we just crash and burn at the bottom, and there's no cushioning. There's no like making it better. So ultimately, we want rates to go up. I know it's not great for the buyer that's trying to buy right this second. It's not a spectacular situation. I've been having the same conversation with these people that I've got pre-approved and basically saying, hey, look, yeah, I know you're getting 5% or 5.25% right now or whatever it may be. Keep in mind that this is probably a short-term situation. This is a, hey, year or two, can you afford the payment now? You wouldn't qualify probably if you couldn't. And yeah, it's not spectacular, but you're probably looking at a year or two before rates start to come back down again, and you're going to be in a position where you can refinance to take advantage. So this isn't like oh my God, I'm branded with 5% for the rest of my life.
Sure.
This is a necessary step in the evolution of rates that's ultimately going to lead to them coming back down at some point in not too distant future. Mm-hmm. So, keep that in mind when you're talking to your buyers. Like, there's so much negative out there in the world, and like there's so much stress, going on with, all the news and everything else, that the last thing we need is our buyers like completely jumping off bridges over the idea that rates went up a point or something like that. Because
Sure.
I mean, I bought my first house at higher rates than they are now, and I'm sure that like other old people like me and Tim can tell you stories about back in the day when we walked uphill both ways to school.
Sure,
How
the
high the
Bronze
rates.
Age, yeah. My first
Yeah,
cave, I don't know, 9%, 8%. Yeah, it was through the roof.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know Jake was born in a time frame where he's never seen high rates, but like at the end of the day, like this is part of the cycle of things, and it's a necessary evil or a necessary thing because it's a positive for other things out there. So, put a good spin on it. Tell your buyers, let's keep looking. It's gonna eventually result in helping with the inventory situation too, because there are going to be people that are going to drop out, and there's going to be more inventory that comes into play and things of that nature. So this is all necessary and ultimately good. I don't want to pitch it as a bad thing. It's part of what needs to happen, and it's part of the cycle that we live in with real estate and lending.
Yeah, well, I think my cautionary tale is we have a lot of people who are like their buyers are waiting for a better moment, and that story is only going to climb mathematically, and it's also going to expose your buyers for if they're truly motivated. Because if somebody needs to move, they're going to be okay with the 5.25 or whatever their number might be in the near future. And to Brad's point, then there's a refi opportunity moving forward as well. To your point about what Jake would know, I was thinking about the fact they just talked about last night, and there's a lot of us that are using our TVs that we normally use for presentations, for a golf presentation in the next couple of days. So they were talking about the fact that Tiger won his first Masters 25 years ago in '97. Does that sound accurate, Jake? When were you born?
I was born in '96.
Oh, 96. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, he's so much older. So much older. But yeah, I was just to put it in, yeah, Brad's like, oh boy. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've got a purchase that was supposed to be signing right now that my buyer got to the property, and the property still got all the seller's stuff in it. So we all know what that's like. It's fun.
That is a good time. It's part of the excitement. Well, and one more thing, Brad, just to clarify too, because they did talk about, and I think the next one is coming relatively soon. The Fed is going to make 6 more adjustments, and when you're talking about mortgage rates and the federal rate, they're not the same, yet they are connected. It's going to change. So both numbers will change out of that action.
Yeah, the Fed rate is what is the short-term borrowing rate that the Fed lends money at. Okay. As a general trend, what you'll see leading up to the Fed meetings is that the adjustment gets built into mortgage rates. And then as long as at the Fed meetings they do what they're supposed to do, and they don't throw any surprises at you, then a lot of times actually rates level out or come back down a little bit as a result of those adjustments. It's usually pre-built in. Yeah. Some of the wild cards you're dealing with right now that makes for an unstable market, and it also rates don't like instability. That's when we start to see scary stuff happen. They jump a lot quickly type of thing. Is yes, the Feds are saying they're going to raise the rates 6 more times this year. Guess how many Fed meetings there are? There's 5 left.
Yeah.
So when's that 6th hike going to happen? And then you've got other people. They're also dealing with a lot of mortgage-backed securities and things like that that were purchased by the Feds over the last several years that they're trying to offload now, and they're who's buying them, and what's that market for that and things of that nature. So that's where things get complicated. And then, throw into it, the idea that there's still, we're still dealing with pandemic type stuff at times, and potentially World War III, and that all throws like an amazing amount of instability in the market. So it's just something we're going to have to ride out, and deal with, and make sure that our buyers are educated and do the best we can for them, but ultimately let them know that this is probably a short-term thing, that this is going to change in the future, that where they're going to be able to put themselves in a better financial spot down the road.
Right. So if you are looking for help with Brad and his team, and there's a massive team. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I'm going to go 7 of you total. Yes?
No.
No? I'm off. Okay.
There's 4 of us. So yeah. So I'm in Portsmouth, and I cover the Portsmouth, York, and Meredith area. Unfortunately, Tammy's no longer with us. She's left Annie Mac at this point. So for greener pastures or something different. And we've got Diane covering Wolfboro and North Conway. Yep. And then Ben and Kelly supporting us as a team. That's the team members that are probably most important. Kelly will be, I don't know, she's gone down the path of a lot of the women that we work with, where she wants a vacation. Yeah. She wants a vacation so badly that she got pregnant so that she can, take time off.
Anything to get away from Brad.
Exactly.
Anything to get away from Brad.
Yeah.
So you can certainly get in touch with Brad. He's most of the team is here in Portsmouth, or you can call 603-396-3198. for Brad Kelly and his team. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate the update.
Yeah, no
Jake,
problem.
Buddy, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, Jake has there's a question from the peanut gallery. Go ahead.
Yeah.
From the Peanut Gallery. So, how long have you been in the business doing mortgages?
So I've been the in-house lender in the Keller Williams office for just over 17 years, and I was in the business for 3 years prior to that. So about 20 years in the mortgage world.
Okay, so in the past, when rates have gone up, have you noticed if prices have kind of adjusted to that? To like, have you noticed that? I haven't seen that in the market at this point in my life, and so I'm just wondering, from your perspective, could there be some adjustments on the prices coming down because of the interest rates maybe increasing a little bit?
So So that's kind of a loaded question. So there's a couple
Right.
different sides to it. So yeah, I'm going to start by saying yes. I think you'll see some leveling as a result of this, or a push towards leveling in the markets and things of that nature. But the last time like I experienced this was when I had the pleasure of buying my first house with my wife, and we bought a property in what was it, oh 04, oh 05, something of that nature. I think it was oh 05. It was
Yeah.
about 10 minutes before the market crashed, and it was it's a prime example of what was different about then that's we're not necessarily experiencing now. So we bought with an 80/20, a first and a second mortgage, 100% financing. We bought a house that was pretty much a gut rehab, because that's what we did with it. And, we were first time home buyers that, were kind of strapped to the hilt, with what we were dealing with there. My wife also decided in that mix that she wanted a vacation, so she was pregnant about a month after we bought the property. So my 2-person gut rehab team went to like a half-person team, and ultimately resulted in me taking a lot longer with the project. And it was at the time we had bought it with the idea that it was going to be a 5-year plan, and 10 years later, you know, my wife was like, okay, so are we stuck in this house forever? And we went through what a lot of people went through in that time frame where, she's like, I hate this house. Like, our family's too big for this house. What are we doing? And it was like, well, here's our options. We can keep making the payments. We can, deal with where we are, live our life and make the best of it. Or we can do, we can do a short sale, or we can do, just let the house go, and there was a lot of people that chose, option B, which ultimately was what led to the biggest part of the crash that happened back then. The,
Yep.
the the property prices came down, I think, back then more of a result of, yeah, the rates went up, but it was also the market. You were dealing with a market where you had, people, first time home buyers, buying houses at 100% financing at the peak of a market price point wise, and they were houses that needed a lot of work and things of that nature. Whereas, we're in an environment now where a lot of people that are buying houses aren't financially strapped. They're putting money down. There's money involved. These are people that are financially in a good position in life, and they're buying houses that aren't, big projects as a general trend. They're good houses. Yeah, maybe anybody that owns a house, that there's always something, but it's not like, oh my God, I just bought a house that I got to rip all the walls out and the roof off of it to like make it livable. That's not, as a general trend, the environment we're in now. So my gut instinct is we'll see things level out. We'll see more properties on the market, and they may come down a little bit. I mean, let's be honest, they're not making more land. I mean, if those of us that were at family reunion, I mean, Gary was
Buy dirt.
screaming,
Yep.
buy dirt,
Yep.
like that was, and so it is what it is, when we have a lack or a shortfall of properties out there based on the buyer pool. So until that kind of levels out, that's going to continue. We're going to continue to see that supply and demand, supports the values that we're seeing out there.
Okay, cool. So a little higher interest rates, but a lot healthier economy than in the past. So
Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see.
Well,
We'll see.
I don't.
Not making any promises on the economy. It's Friday, for God's sakes. Too much pressure.
Yeah,
It's Friday.
Yeah, you add the healthy economy piece in. I mean, everything I'm hearing is pointing towards, some issues with that due to inflation.
Sure.
Not too far down the road.
Yeah. And so everyone's clear. Brad does not have a chair on the Fed.
I'm not even smart enough to know this. Yeah. This is literally like I read this. Smarter people than me write this, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you, Brad. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna duck out. I'm on my way to Meredith. I'm actually stopped over at a buddy's place up here, and I'm gonna continue to make my way there. Anybody that is listening to this, that hopefully that's in that area, hopefully we'll see you guys at the social later today.
Yeah, 3 to 5 at the Meredith office.
Yeah,
and finger sandwiches and cocktails. Yes.
Yeah, and and I definitely owe you a coffee sometime, Jake, or maybe we'll grab a beer.
At some point, yes. Brad's been doing coffee with a capper now. We've been 2 solid years of COVID, and not a single cup of coffee has been purchased for anybody. So we're holding you to that. Although if you ever are out with Brad, he'll make up for it in spades. He's one of the most generous people on the planet. So that being said, also Brad, everyone will miss you because the production team is going to kill me. When you leave, your little square staying up because we don't have a drop down to a 2-up on this. So it's just going to be Brad's square blank with his name there when he does leave, so that's fine. But we know you got to get on the road. We appreciate you stopping in and giving us all the information about the race and banking. 603-396-3198 if you need Brad's help.
All right. Awesome, thanks, you guys. Have a great day.
We'll see you soon.
Talk to you later, Jake.
See you, bud.
Bye.
Dr. Crosby, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Dr.
Excellent.
Lindsay. How are you?
Not too bad. So, when you first started and we first started having our conversations, I say to all of you, get me from high school graduation to this conversation. So bring everyone who's never met you, Jake Crosby, Pine Tree Properties, beautiful downtown Maine, get us up to speed. And I know it's a little out of order. You didn't get your license and then start to do all the other things that you do. And what you do more often than not every day is really driving around, working with your team, and you're swinging a hammer, and you're doing all that kind of stuff. For the most part, yes, right?
It changes every day.
It changes. Lord knows what the day will bring. But, just bring us up to speed, where you grew up so everybody can get to know you a little bit better, and then just talk about, in some sort of an order, all of your many businesses that you got going on. The one that you just launched most recently, which I think people will be very excited about because I think a lot of people have been sitting home for 2 years looking at all the stuff in their house and saying, God, I got to get a dumpster. Or they've got a project coming up or whatever the case may be. But take it away, Jake. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. So my name is Jake Crosby. I grew up here in Sanford, Maine. So my wife and I, we got together in high school. We've been together, got married, did the whole thing. We've been together. But in high school, we both didn't necessarily know what we wanted to do. So we started going to community college. So we were working full time, going to school full time, and just trying to figure everything out. And I was working at Pratt Whitney in North Berwick, and she was serving tables and bartending. Well, we were doing the school thing, doing the work thing, and the situation came up where we had to find a place to live. So we got a studio apartment, and it was small. I mean, it was really small. We had a full-size bed that barely fit in the
which is amazing. I'll give you credit. She still hasn't gone on her vacation, right? We were talking about that last time we spoke.
Yeah, hey.
When is Heather going on vacation?
Knock on whatever. Knock on it.
I bring them into existence. All I have to do, I'm like the baby whisperer, so I'm going to do my best. Little Jake's on the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we were like, you know what, this is a pretty good situation that we were in. We were in a good location and stuff, but
sure.
I don't really want to pay rent. So I did a Google search, of course. The best thing that we can all do is a Google search and say, how do I not pay rent? And I kind of stumbled across the lingo house hacking. So we ended up doing some research and decided that we were going to go the multifamily route. And we bought a duplex, lived on one side, rented out the other. The gentleman next door was older and was getting out of it, so we ended up buying the duplex next door there. Mm-hmm. And then we bought a single family that we were planning on renting, and my wife Heather, she was like, you know what if we do what they do on TV and we fix up the house and then we sell it? I'm like, sure, we could try that. And so we talked to our real estate agent at the time, Brian, and he was like, yeah. So he gave us the recommendations for colors and this and that, and we did our first flip. We finished it in 4 or 5 weeks and ended up making 40,000 and above. And at 20, 21 years old, that was a pretty big deal. We were like, this is something that we want to do.
Yeah.
And so we started getting into doing some fix and flip projects, which is where Pine Tree Properties came from. And I was like, well, I'm doing the work. I know what the market is. I know what the work that I need to do. So why don't I get my real estate license? And so got my real estate license, started doing that for a little bit part-time while I was still at Pratt Whitney. And we started doing more flips. We started doing more rentals. And we got to a point where we had enough rentals where I could leave Pratt and kind of do real estate full-time. And at that time, Heather got her license, and then 2 other gentlemen, Aaron Signor and Trent Lynch, they joined our team, and we started our real estate team that we have today, which is Pine Tree Real Estate. And so from there, we started Crosby Construction for the purposes of the flips.
Yeah.
And then we also just recently launched the New England Dumpster Rentals, where we, again, kind of an accident, we got the system for tax purposes, and we were using it for our own business. And then we were like, hey, you know what? This might actually be a pretty good thing. So we ended up buying more equipment and got it lettered, set up an entity, and have been doing it ever since.
So I want to back up a little bit because I without fail, some of the amazing things that Zoe and I get to hear when people first join us and they're in their first coaching sessions, they're like, listen, Tim, I love people and I love houses. And if I could put people in houses, well, boy, that'd just be swell, right? Like, because everybody admittedly probably watched too much HGTV. And when you first get here on the real estate side, when you first get here, you think it's going to be a 22-minute show minus commercials. Everybody gets paid. Everybody's rich. And then you're like, oh crap, there's some heavy lifting to do. So to dispel the other myth, and I would argue, and correct me, and I know there's a large portion of what I'm about to say that will infuriate some people, and I know I'm wrong to an extent. If you're just getting started and you truly don't know what you're doing, to get right into flips, because you watched a full week, 2 boxes of wine, 72 hours of HGTV, and Heather had a measuring tape and you had a flashlight, and suddenly you're going to start flipping. Just to slow that process down and explain between if you were investing and holding to cash flow stuff like you do with a lot of your properties, as opposed to flipping. Would you agree that the flip is much more time consuming than the hold process? And I think people are looking for that quick flip, and it's just easy, and it's just not, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Exactly. On TV, it's an hour episode, and they flip the house.
Really they show the husband fall through the roof, and then they cut to a Kellogg's cornflakes commercials. You're like, that looks fun.
And then the house is done perfectly, and they got above asking price, no hiccups along the way. But no, it's definitely a challenge for sure. And to answer your question, flips are definitely a lot more time consuming, and to be honest, a lot more risky than doing the buy and holds. Because the buy and holds, it's really just a numbers game. Here's what my income is. Here's what the current expenses are. Here's what my projected expenses are. Here's the money I'm looking to make. So it's a lot more. You can assess it a lot better, and you're not really like rent doesn't change like house prices. Like rent is relatively pretty similar from when we started to where we are. Maybe there's a few $100s difference, but if it worked then, it continues to work today. You've got some work on the rental side as far as, doing maintenance requests and, screening tenants and stuff like that. But as far as the flipping, if you end up getting started in it, it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
So whether you're doing it on your off hours at night or on the weekend, or you decide to do it full-time, there's so much that goes into it. And maybe it's not just the swinging the hammer, but it's the figuring out the financing. It's finding the good contractors. It's getting the right insurance. It's getting a good agent, making sure you're staying up with the trends, making sure that you're doing your draws, inspecting, learning how to do something if you're the one who's trying to do it. There's so much time that goes into it. So like our first flip that I was telling you about, we did it in 4 weeks. I was working first shift, but I was working, an additional 5 to 8 hours a night. I was there until almost midnight every night. Right. And then I was doing 12-hour days on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
But that was a cosmetic flip. That was literally, some paint, some floors, maybe counters, replacing light fixtures, the easiest one I've really done to this day. It was lucky that that was the first one, but it as you start getting more comfortable, you're willing to take on more projects, but that's when you start realizing I need to really get some good contractors and build out a team.
Yeah, so that I think if anybody's as curious as I am, so this all starts with a Google search, right? This is like a French for look it up. So you and Heather are
Right.
just like, how do we not pay rent? And
Yeah.
to your point, this was just a handful of years ago. So what was your background with construction and carpentry and finish work? Like, what were you doing that made this maybe a little less arduous for you than somebody like, I mean, like look at this, not like, yeah, not a scratch. I have no idea what it looks like to do all that kind of stuff. So what was your
Right.
background? Was there something about your upbringing or a family member that you were like, I understand this, used to hang out with my grandfather, this makes sense?
Yeah, so to be honest, my dad is an amazing guy, but he does not do much for hands-on stuff. I mean, he's a heating tech, so he's really good with boilers and furnaces and
Sure.
heating equipment. But when it comes to cars and building, he takes some time on it. But so I
Yes.
didn't learn too much about the tools and stuff like that from an upbringing. I did do half of a year in building trades
Okay.
at Sanford Regional Technical Center,
Okay.
which is funny because at the time I was like, hey, I really like this, but I don't want to do it full time.
Sure.
And that was because I was like, oh, this is in Maine, it's cold, X, Y, and Z. So I learned like the very basics, like the safety stuff, like, hey, don't cut your hand off, don't point nail guns at people, just stuff like that. But really, the bulk of my learning just came from saying, I don't know how to do this. This problem came up. I don't know how to do it, and I got to figure it out. So then I went to my old friend Google
I was
again.
gonna say, yeah, yeah,
How do I install counters? How do I, what are the proper steps to paint? I really did. It was all about problem solving skills and asking questions and doing some researches. For me, like that's just kind of how my brain works. And
sure.
so if I could find a Google video of someone, I mean, a YouTube video of someone installing a counter and they have roughly the material list or the tool list, I was like, okay, I can do that. And
Yeah.
then after I started doing a little bit of it, I was able to, I didn't have to look things up as much. And then you just start to learn kind of the process a lot better.
Sure. So help me with like the drop down on your business, and then ultimately like the org chart from there. So your businesses, like you talked about, you guys have there's the real estate end of what you guys do, right?
Yep. Pine
So
Tree Real Estate,
yep. So
which is
Pine
our
Tree,
team.
right? And then you've got the properties, which that is the flips and the property maintenance as well.
Yep. So then we got Pine Tree Properties, which we do flips with, and then we hold our rentals in.
Okay. And then you've got just construction, like
Yep. Then we got Crosby Construction. So, sometimes we pick up work and do things for other people, but a lot of the times we end up having our crew work on our projects. Like, for example, we have 4 flips going right now. We have 3 in Sanford, 1 in Acton. And so it's really just about, having the team go from one place to the next and just trying to keep everything flowing the right way. So a lot of our resources go into our own projects, but we also do take on some other work as well.
how often, and this I know just from talking to you and Heather, I know this is a rarity, but how often, like, do you get home and you're actually about to have a cocktail or dinner, and like she turns around and looks at you and says, "What in the hell are we doing?" Or you've said it to her. Like, when has it dawned on you? Like, you guys have accomplished quite a bit. There's a lot going on. Like, there's more than
Yeah,
one truck. There's more than one hammer. You've got a staff. We haven't even gone to staff and org chart, but like, when does overwhelm hit you? Is it daily, weekly, and is it a sense of pride and a sense of like obviously leadership and responsibility all rolled into one?
yeah. I mean, I think that there's just particular situations that come up where we say, okay, we need to take a step back, or we need to slow down so we can speed up again. Like you and I have talked about a
Sure.
lot, bringing up the org chart because I used to wear the 15 different hats and
Yep.
work the 100-hour weeks, and I would go back and do it again because I think it was really important. But also I'm ready to kind of have a life again,
Yeah.
which we've talked about. And so we definitely have conversations pretty frequently about where we're at, what we want to do, things that we could improve on. Um, and really just making not just our lives better, but our team lives better, and also our community. Like, what can we do to make sure that it's something that we're doing good things all the time. So
Yeah, it's fascinating too because it feels like everything that's come from your initial Google search of how do we avoid paying rent, right?
right,
Every growth pattern of your business and all these things we just talked about. I mean, moving right up to New England Dumpster, it was like, okay, this is a service we require. I don't want to pay people to come to my sites or to rent a dumpster because obviously you were renting dumpsters from somebody. I'm sure they're not thrilled with it
right.
anymore, but that's fine. And
They're fine.
nobody cares. Yeah, it's not your problem. So what do you think? What's the next thing like you and Heather and your team have thought about? Like, okay, we got the dumpsters. What's the next logical step for you guys to own the service for yourself and create that service for other builders, other flippers? Like, what's the next branch in the tree of growth for your company, for the empire?
Yeah, so that you kind of hit it on the head. Where what we've been trying to do is we've been trying to build wider. Like,
Mm.
we're like, hey, we want to be able to be full service real estate. So someone comes to us and they say, hey, I want to rent a property. Yeah, absolutely. We have rentals. And then, hey, Jake, we're ready to buy a house. Absolutely. Let's connect you with
Yep.
our real estate team.
Yep.
But Jake, we have a lot of stuff that we need to get rid of. Hey, don't worry about it. We have some dumpsters. We'll drop them off at a discount because you're working with us.
Oh, is it a
And
moving
so,
company? It's a moving company. Is it a moving company?
no, I have thought about it, but I think some things that I want to do next.
Pine Tree Portables. Come on, man. I'm giving you the name.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea. But what I want to do next, I think, is there's a couple things. One, property management. So we have 35 units, I think, at this time, and by
Okay.
the end of the year, we'll have over 50. And so we're getting pretty decent at managing our rentals and bringing in good people and kind of doing that. So
Sure.
offering a property management service for other folks that have rentals. We also, at this point, are pretty good at looking at properties and knowing what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
So we've also thought about, eventually starting a inspection business. And then kind of the third thing is doing storage units. So then you kind of can take care of, again, hey, I want to sell my house, but I don't have anywhere to go.
Sure.
Don't worry about it. We have rentals, but well, that's great, but I have all this stuff. Well, that's okay too, because we have storage facility that you can rent out.
Or even-
we try to offer discounts for the different services with the people that work with us. So.
Pine Tree Pods, right? But Pods is
Pine
already
Tree
a brand.
Pods.
Can you is that like a term or is that a brand? It's like
That's-
inline
I think
skate and
it's-
rollerblade. Which one came first, the chicken or the egg?
I think it's a brand. It's a brand.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what I'm trying to eventually get to, is really have it. So why would you go anywhere else when we offer everything? We do a good job, but it's definitely, I kind of went wider faster, and now I'm trying to build it up, and I want to make sure that everything's really tight and really running well and efficient before I add something else at this point. But it's definitely there and something I want to do, and we're just working on working with our team, building our team up, making sure that they're good, and becoming better leaders and managers ourselves. So
Yeah, and with such a diverse, they're all in the same field, right, and industry ultimately,
Right.
but like there's a lot of personalities, so it's definitely a challenge for sure to be leading people, managing people, and overseeing all the stuff. What's your biggest challenge right now as an owner and a leader, and also you're constantly looking for talent to fill the bench, right? So what would you say right now is the biggest challenge with that for you?
Oh man, there's a lot of challenges, but one that I find to be really challenging is I feel for people. I have a lot of empathy, and so when situations arise where I need to sit down and talk to someone about, hey, like, you can't say that, or you can't do that, or we need to operate better as a team, or having to fire a contractor that's not doing a good job, or whatever. I'd say for me right now, that's a really challenging thing, because I know that we're all continuously working on ourselves and becoming better. We're not perfect, but there's definitely some very, very challenging conversations that end up having to happen. And I still take them pretty personally, because I care about the people that I'm working with. So I'd say for me, that's probably the heaviest thing I have to lift every day.
Yeah.
Um, but that might not be, if someone else were to look at, some of the issues, that might not be the heaviest thing for them, but it is for me.
Right, and a lot of the people that are working with you, the crews that are jumping from the flip to the new construction, because you've got those relationships, they're going back and forth.
Yeah.
It's got to be problematic in that conversation because none of these people are signing on to Crosby like as an employee, right? These are just guys you trust, and you're going to create work
No,
for
they
them.
are.
Oh, they are. So
Yeah.
all of your crews are signing on. So my question was going to
Not
just,
everybody, but
okay, all right, because my question was going to just hearing people talking about, we're talking before Brad took off, talking about buying dirt and materials went up during COVID. And then the most difficult thing, if you got the dirt, you got the materials, finding the GC that was actually available before 2035 was a challenge. So for you, with your crew of people, do you struggle with, and I don't know what the inner workings are between companies, do you struggle with some of your people getting picked off? Like, what do you feel you offer that keeps your guys and girls loyal to you?
yeah. So I think it kind of, when I started really creating this as a business, right? So we have a foreman that is overseeing like the actual construction and doing the work on the job,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have another carpentry guy, Matt, who works alongside Dwayne, and so they work together on the flips a lot.
Okay.
And then we also have a project manager, so that kind of answers your question about the
Sure.
GC part of it. So the project manager, Aaron, he really makes sure that materials there. He makes sure that contractors are there. He makes
Mm.
sure he's checking on the work and doing that. And then we have someone that does the dumpsters. They do material runs. They kind of do a lot of our transports and stuff. And so I obviously built it that way because I was wearing all of those hats. And I'm like, what
Yeah.
do I need? I need someone on the job. I need someone getting material. I need
Yeah.
someone overseeing all the work, especially with this many projects going on. And so, like, that's the team that we built as employees, as far as their salary or hourly for us working with us, part of our team. But then on top of that, we have our subcontractors who have been, we've obviously cycled some in and out, but
Sure.
our plumber Brian and our electrician Tim, and people that are doing excavation, like, they've been with us from the beginning. And it's just really important to treat them the way that they want to be treated,
Yeah.
and to make sure that you're always getting them their payment right away. Like, I don't know about you, but when I finish a job, I kind of like getting paid for it,
Yeah.
and they do too. And that's something
Sure.
that people are like, oh well, I don't have the money yet. It's like, well, then you probably shouldn't have hired the service out. But so what we try to make sure is, one, we treat everybody with respect and the way that they want to be treated. So we have that conversation up front. We work on contracts too, because I have been burnt by people before. So now we're doing contracts with our subcontractors.
Yeah.
But then making sure that, hey, I've finished the job, go inspect it, take a look at it, ask
Yeah.
for any changes that need to be made, and pay right away.
Yeah.
And that's how you keep loyal people. As far as on the subcontractor side, you don't give them grief for everything. You don't beat them up on price for everything. You treat them well. You pay them on time.
Yeah. So for you, when you're thinking about, you were talking about having people in place because you were wearing all those hats, right? And you and
Yes.
I have talked about this, and I share this comment and this thought process with a lot of our agents. If the system breaks when you're on vacation, it was never working in the first place, because you were
Yeah.
the system, right? Like as soon
Yeah.
as as soon as it always worked while I was there. Well, you must have been doing too much of it if that was the case. So, with that kind of freedom that you're building, and not talking about the pregnancies and the vacations we were joking about before, but for you and Heather, how much closer are you to knowing that you could step away and take a real, we're on an island, we threw the phones away at the airport, we're gone for 6 days, 7 nights, or vice versa? Like what does that look like for you? When's the plan to rest?
Yeah, so I think, like we've talked, that one of the big things was getting the foreman on the jobs and having
Mm.
someone as a project manager. And now that we have that, I think that we could do 75% of what you just said, which
Mm-hmm.
is we could go on vacation, we could enjoy ourselves, spend time with each other. We just couldn't throw our phones away. So
Yeah,
there's just still some things that, hey, it's a preference thing. Jake,
sure.
what do you think about this? Oh, well, I think this. So go ahead and move forward with that. But it used to be I was making every decision and I was making every order and I was making like doing it all. But now having the team that we have in place, like I really think that like we're planning a vacation coming up. I'm going away for 3 days this upcoming week. I'll have my phone on me to answer questions,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we're pretty much at a spot where we could go away and enjoy ourselves and not feel stressed out. So it's pretty important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're ready. I went from I was employed to going on 3 vacations a year because Pratt gave us off around
Yeah.
Christmas, so we would always go away for Christmas,
Sure.
and then we would always do a summer trip, and sometimes we would do a fall trip. But we haven't done any trips since we made the full time real estate because Heather, she left serving tables and bartending as well,
Sure.
and she's doing real estate full time.
Yep.
So, but we're finally at the spot. It takes time and it takes a lot of hours and it takes a lot of energy, a lot of mental and physical energy. But we're at a spot now, thankfully, and thanks to you, you helped us out a lot with that, kind of
No, I
realizing
appreciate
what we
that.
needed.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So,
No, it's fun to watch you guys grow and build everything you're building too. So when you're making that first search on Google, if today's Jake could go back and tap that Jake on the shoulder,
yeah,
what would you do differently from that moment between
I would have
between then
bought.
and now?
I would have bought a lot more rentals.
Okay.
Um, because obviously where we are today and where we were in 2016, 2017 is
Sure.
very different.
Nathan would be
Because
happy to
that
hear
would
you
have,
say that because Nathan would be like, yes, press your advantage. Yes. Yep.
yeah. So I would definitely say, Jake, buy some more rentals. Do the flips to be able to buy the rentals and just
Yep.
continue on with that. And then I would have said definitely to bring on a helper that I could have trained into my lead guy a lot sooner.
Okay.
I would have had a life a lot faster being able to trust somebody because it's different because I mean you hear it all the time, people saying, oh, like people can't do it as well as I can. That's 100% wrong, but it's how it feels
Sure.
in the beginning
Sure.
because you're like, oh, I did this house and it came out great and I want it done this way.
Yeah.
But if I could go back, I would say, Jake, buy more rentals and bring on help sooner, but bring on the right help and really take the time to train them. That's what I probably would go back and really just say, I want you to work with me every day and I'm going to teach you everything I know
Yep.
and we'll learn together on some of this stuff.
Yeah, because the big thing, from a leadership standpoint, the reason a lot of our head chefs won't take their hand off the spoon in the kitchen is because you're so concerned that your standard will not be upheld, right? And that's
Right.
probably the most important thing. Can you communicate your standard? Do these people leadership is what happens when you leave the room. Like when I'm not on the job site, are they behaving as if like we call it when we look at your DISC assessment, there's the natural and the adaptive. When Jake's crew knows Jake is there, they're in an adaptive mode because they know they're
Right.
under scrutiny. What is their natural mode when Jake steps away? And when you can find
Right.
those kind of people, then you guys can take 2 weeks and absolutely light your phones on fire, And I'm not judging, no
Right.
judgment of your current staff. I guess when you
Right.
between, the most difficult real estate to own is the 5.5 inches between your ears. So when in your head and your heart, you say, I do have a great team. We can take some more time. And I guess that leads to my next question. Like, what is the big picture for you? And I joke because I know, we've already made fun of your age, and I say that with love. But at 25 years old, what does the next 10 years bring, 20 years bring? And what do you want this to look like when you step away? If and when you have an idea to do that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just kind of interesting because one of the things that I talk about pretty frequently with my team and really anybody I talk to about like business is to reevaluate your version of success pretty frequently. Because if you would have asked me legitimately 1 year ago, I would say my goal is to be a billionaire by 40, right?
Mm-hmm.
And today, I'm not saying I don't still want to be a billionaire, but I'm saying that I now value my health and I now value my time off and spending time with my family and friends and stuff
Sure.
like that. So, I guess what I'm trying to do now is I don't have an end picture in mind, but I do know that having a life outside of work is pretty important to me. So I'm trying to set these businesses up and put the people in place so that it can be a business and I can be a business owner. And I'm not saying that I'll never be in the business, but I don't want to be in it every single day.
Yeah, there's working on it and working in it, right?
Yeah, and I have a really good vision I like to kind of use the analogy because I've obviously had, conversations with people saying, oh, well, you're not seeing this, that, the other thing. It's like, I am. I'm just, from your perspective on the ground, looking at traffic, you're seeing the couple cars, but I'm in the helicopter and I'm saying, okay, let's take this route. Like I really enjoy that in my life. And that's one thing that I think that I'm pretty decent at. So I really want to create these businesses and get them in a way so I can be up in the helicopter and kind of pointing everybody in the direction that we need to go to be successful as a team.
Yeah, you have to be the visionary, because if you're not, if nobody's having that think time and casting these these lines way far out, that your team might be like, really? And like, no, you have to at least be thinking of the 20 paces ahead of you, if not the year ahead of you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've come to learn when Nate brings something to us, he's about to push play. We don't really get a vote. And I mean this in the best of terms, right? He's thought this through. He's run the numbers. It is his next step. He's letting us know because we're going to be part of the conversation that moves it forward with him, right?
Yeah.
But like he's got the plans for the next 2-3 years already mapped out to an extent. And if you don't have that, then there's no vision for everybody. And it's just like, well, we're just getting through the day. One of the comments that I hate to hear the most, and I'm sure you hear this once a day, is when you are, and I always use the story. I was with Aiden when he was much younger. We stopped, we're getting gas, we go inside. He's like coming from a lacrosse practice, and he goes to get his Powerade, and we're standing in line to pay for it. And and it's a couple of guys and a couple of pickup trucks that ran into each other, Tony and Jimmy, and the age-old question, hey Tony, how's it going? And the response was, same shit, different day.
Yeah.
And I just took a deep breath, and I got back in the car, and I turned to Aiden and I said, did you hear the guys inside? And he's like, yeah, Daddy. And I'm like, my job is to make sure you never say that as an adult.
Yeah.
Right? And even if you don't,
Exactly.
even if you might feel it, I don't ever want you to verbalize it, because I don't want us to tell that story to ourselves. There's such a massive opportunity, and I think the fact that as leaders, we have to be creating that vision so our people don't realize that and actually say that to somebody in public, right?
Yeah. It can be challenging for sure, because I think it's about the communication part of that. Like,
sure.
Nate has a vision, or I have a vision, or you have a vision. If we don't speak it,
right,
then it is same shit, different day.
Yep.
For our team, right?
Yep.
So it is about saying, hey, like, we're working on this house, and here's why.
Yeah.
Yep. Because sometimes, I had this conversation the other day. I hated growing up, and so does everybody else, when you're like, hey, can I do this? And your parents are like, no. And you're like, why? And they're like, because. You're like, okay, because why? Why can't I do this? Or why can I do this?
Yeah.
And so, I think that's super important, just to make sure that when you're talking with your team, hey, we're working on this house, and we're going to finish this house up so we can do the next house. And the reason that we're doing these houses is so we can start in the new construction realm and provide great homes for people in the area. Yeah. And we can put up an apartment building that will be able to really help the community. And, basically creating a real vision and expressing it. And I think that I do an okay job at it, but I could do a lot better, because there's a lot that goes up in here. Some of it's great, some of it's not, but it's definitely hard to express it, but it's really important too.
Well, and the connectivity between what the long view is and what the vision is to the, back to everything that you do in your career is going to be very mundane to create the extraordinary, right? So what that guy said to the other guy in line isn't wrong. It's just you also have to approach it. And if you're truly passionate for what you do, and I know you are for sure, it's the simple verbal change of waking up and getting to do something as opposed to having to do something. And there's hard work for sure. There's going to be a day in August where it's 102. And you're going to be standing at a site with your guys, and you'll all be sweating. I will be here in some of the greatest words Americans can say, corporate air conditioning. I'll be indoors, yelling at people, but I'll be indoors. Like that differentiation, I understand that, but you're still going to be in that space because you're building this thing that you love, and you get to do this every day. You get to go play in your genius zone as opposed to I have to get up and go to work. And I think if we're simply going to trade our time for money as opposed to trade our talents for growth, and especially something we're impassioned about, which everyone here gets to do, I think that's a huge game changer. It's that mindset. I get to go do this as opposed to I have to go do this.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And to go along with that, I think it's also it's important to realize that you're going to have days and periods of time where you will wake up and say, I have to do this today. Because, in theory, I would say, yeah, every day I wake up and I say I get to do this. But I don't love everything I do.
Sure.
But I love a lot of what I do. And it's just understanding that, this is not a fun time. This month was not a fun time.
Sure.
Or this week was not a fun time. But that's okay.
Yep.
Because the big picture is I do get to wake up and do the things I want to do. I do get to wake up and get to do things that motivate me and that help people and that help my family and that help the community. But, I'm just saying, to be like real with it, for me, is there are plenty of days I wake up and go, I really don't want to do this today, but I have to because it's important.
Yeah. Some tab A slot B days for sure. So speaking of that in the big picture, what for you, when you look back on everything you've accomplished since you got started, since the first Google search, what are you most proud of? Is there a particular project that you drive by and like that makes your heart really full, or like just, and I know this is a huge question. There's probably 15 answers. What are you most proud of that you've accomplished as a team or as an individual?
Well, that's a great question. We've worked on a lot of projects, and it's 100% not a particular project.
Okay.
It's for me, it is probably two things. One, problem solving skills. That's something that I learned, and I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am today if I didn't really learn how to solve problems.
Yep.
And that goes into like so many levels of life, as far as with our team, with my wife, with myself,
Sure.
With everything. I think that like something for me was, I'm really proud of the fact that I really learned how to truly solve problems. Maybe sometimes it's this isn't working, but sometimes it's this isn't working and it's a situation and you got to be able to fix it. And then I would say the other thing that I'm probably most proud of is who I'm becoming as a man. I've put myself into situations, very uncomfortable situations, that have allowed me to both mess up but also succeed.
Yeah.
But I think that I've grown tremendously as a human being and as a leader, and that's something that I'm really proud of.
You should be.
Which is
awesome.
probably not the answer that you were thinking, but
No,
I think that's for me.
You took us right where we were supposed to go, for sure. So let me end with this, because she's not there, but we have to give her a ton of credit because, as I joke with everybody, all of us outkicked our coverage. So Heather, Heather's the best half of you. You know that. I know that. Just like most of us outkicked our coverage. So that being said, it's certainly a struggle. Young couple. If you were coming home, because to be able to cut it and be like, okay, we're home now. It's just us. How do we create this relationship time? How do we unplug? Because your phones, and this is just generational, right? Everybody takes everything with them because their phone is always with them, and you've compounded that by having the flips, the rentals, the dumpsters, the real estate. All the things that you guys have built. How do you guys unplug? And if there's no great answer for that, I just want to hear the answer. How do you guys really get time for you just during the week? Never mind the vacation you're about to take, thank God.
Yeah, so that's something that I'm still trying to figure out, like, if I'm being really honest, because so when Heather and I started dating, we spent a tremendous amount of time together, like almost every day. This is obviously back in high school, but
Sure.
when we weren't working or fulfilling obligations, like we were together. And that just kind of, as I was working full time, she was working full time, school full time, definitely changed. And we just started cherishing the small moments that we had together, which then kind of turned into not cherishing the small moments we had together because we were beat up, we were tired, we were exhausted. We didn't want to clean the house. We didn't want to have tough conversations about, things that we really should be talking about. And so like there was like a lapse of time where I think we were both like, I love you, but I'm tired.
I don't have the energy to say it. I'm just going to write it down and slide the note across the bed. I love you.
But I'm just saying that like it's just interesting to see how we went from like all the time in the world together to like no time in the world together.
Yeah.
And now we're transitioning back to, let's make sure we're going out to dinner together, and let's make sure that we spend time with our little family together. My dog and her, like going for walks and going to her parents' house and my parents' house to do game nights. Like we're just being more intentional now. But what I'm saying is it was a very large cycle, and we're still not where I'd like us to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, she would agree with you, but we have a very healthy, strong relationship, and we communicate really well. And so it's really just about us continuing to communicate really well, and then saying no to things and really blocking off time where we can put our phones down and we can do stuff like that. Because right now it's, 8:00 at night before we're able to just be like, hey, it's good to see you today.
Thanks for checking in. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, how you doing? What are you working on? Anything you need from me? Like, tell me about my wife loves tea. That's what she calls it. You got any tea for me?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't have any drama for you. I got nothing. But we'll sit down and we'll just have conversations. We'll watch shows together, and just really try to be intentional about when we're together to do some things and have conversations. And but it's a continuous thing that we have worked on, will work on, and there's probably never going to be a perfect time, but we're working on just trying to make sure that we're taking care of each other's needs.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of the things that we always and we're about to head to Texas for an event next week, and you see more leaders, male and female, up on stage talking about the fact that because we do get so busy, you do have to time block like date night. Which when I first got started, I laughed at. And we had kids when I first got started in real estate, and I sort of laughed at it. I'm like, oh, God, he's just saying that. She's just saying that. And now at the ripe old age of me and my wife and our two teenage boys, 35, God bless you. Your crisp $30 bill will be in the mail for that, sir.
Thank you.
Awesome. Freshly printed. So, yeah, the fear is that you're going to get to the other side of short people, and they're gone, and they're like, oh, cool, we're roommates, So making sure that you do spend that time together. You talked about going out and having that date night, and I think all of us would be like, cool, our favorite, most expensive restaurant, we're going to get all dressed up. Like for you guys, like check that box. Like what's your favorite simple jeans, hat on backwards restaurant that you love to go to? Like if you called her right now and said, tonight we're going to X, what is that dirty little secret restaurant that you guys love?
Yeah, so for us, we never dress up and go out to an expensive restaurant just because we've always been, I want to use a different word, but cheap. We've always been cheap, right? And so
frugal is the word, sir. Frugal. You've been
Sure, call it what you want.
It's sensible.
It's different. It's different today. We're a lot better about it today, but because we've kind of always been like that, like we love, like the pub style food. So we go to Public House in Springvale, and we go to like Third Alarm Diner, which they're just small places and they're local and they're
legit though.
Good food. Yeah. It doesn't have to be anything special. The special thing is that we get to go out and spend time together. So.
Awesome. Well, I've kept you long enough. Thank you for joining us. People might be wondering if they joined us late. Brad Kelly got kicked off the show. I'm just kidding. He didn't. He had to go. He'll be in Meredith later today from 3 to 5, cocktails and finger sandwiches at the Meredith office. If the weather holds, it will be outside. Otherwise, it'll be indoors. 3 to 5 at the Meredith office for you guys if you're in the area. Jake Crosby, Pine Tree Properties, and his better half, who's not – is she even in the room? Sometimes she's
No,
in the room and
she's
she's off camera.
No, she's upstairs.
She's
Yeah.
up. She's upstairs. Your whole crew, you've built something really special. We're super proud of you. Thanks for joining us, for sure.
Thank you, Tim.
Next month,
it.
we'll be back for Coffee with a Capper. I do believe we have Shannon Casey from Legacy Group will be here in the month of May. Until then, we'll see you in and around the Market Center. Jake, once again, have a great weekend. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you. You too.
See you guys.
Ya.
Bye.